Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Smart Study with SN. Today we discuss the Prime Minister of India introduction and powers and functions. Let's start it. Introduction. The Prime Minister of India, appointment of the Prime Minister, tenure, powers and functions of the Prime Minister, position, relation between President and Prime Minister, the Union Council of Ministers, composition, powers and functions, composition, powers and functions. Introduction of the Prime Minister. In India, President is the head of the state, but real executive is Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister. Here we will discuss the Prime Minister appointment, tenure, powers and functions and position of the Prime Minister in India. The Prime Minister of India. Now we discuss powers and functions of the Prime Minister. The powers and functions of the Prime Minister can be verified discussed under formation of the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister plays a very important part in the formation of Council Minister. Means Prime Minister is plays very important formation of his Council Minister. माने प्रधानमंत्री बहुत बड़ कौन इंपोर्टाट रोल प्ले करती कौन मंत्री परिषद में. The first and foremost function of the Prime Minister is to form the Council of Ministers. After the appointment of the Prime Minister, the President appoints all other ministers on the advice. After the appointment of the Prime Minister को appointment परे, the President appoints all other ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister. माने जितेबाला Prime Minister कौन appointment President करती तापरे Prime Minister को advice अनुसार President अन्य Council of Minister को कौन appointment करती. Next, he or she is free to determine the strength of his ministry and also select the minister as per his choice. माने से तांको he or she free to determine the strength of his ministry, also selected the minister of his choice. माने से निज इच्छा मुताबिक कौन मिनिस्टर को कौन बाछंती. नेक्स्ट, distribution of portfolios. Another important distribution of portfolios. Another important function of the Prime Minister is the distribution of portfolios. The Prime Minister distributes the portfolios among other ministers. He or she has complete freedom in distributing portfolios to the different ministers. In this regard, he or she allots the portfolios according to the capabilities of the selected ministers. Changes of portfolios. The Prime Minister has the power to change portfolios of ministers at any time. माने Prime Minister have power to change the portfolios of the ministers at any time. माने Prime Minister को हाथ रे से पावर अछि जे जितेबेले चाहिए सेतेबेले तां portfolios अनुसार कोन मिनिस्टर को चेंज करि परिबे. He or she appoint the new minister, से नुआ मंत्री मानन को कोन appoint करि पारंती. He or she may transfer the portfolios from one minister to another. से गोटे मंत्री आ गोटे मंत्री को निज portfolio अनुसार ट्रांसफर करि पारंती. It is his privilege to shuffle and reshuffle his or her ministry at any time. At any time, he shuffle and reshuffle his ministry at any time. Now we discuss chairman of the cabinet. The Prime Minister is the leader of the cabinet. Prime Minister is the leader of the cabinet. He or she presides over the meetings of cabinet. Se presides over the meeting of the cabinet. He or she decides the date, time and the agenda of his meeting. He or she must resolve the difference arising among the ministers. He or she is the channel of communication between cabinet and the president. माने से कैबिनेट मंत्री परिषद आउ प्रेसिडेंट को मध्य कौन गोटे चैनल कम्युनिकेशन गोटे चैनल बनी जाती. All issues are discussed in the meeting with the permission of the Prime Minister. जदि सब मीटिंग डिस्कशन हुए क्या परमिशन को नहीं ना प्राइम मिनिस्टर परमिशन अनुसार सब मीटिंग सब डिस्कशन हुए। हेड ऑफ द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स द प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स इज द हेड ऑफ द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स। He or she presides over the meetings of the Council of Ministers. He or she may ask a minister to resign in case he or she dissatisfied with his or work। ମାନେ ସେ କାହାକୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ପଚାରି ପାରନ୍ତି ଯେ ତମେ ତମ ପଦବୀରୁ ଇସ୍ତଫା ଦିଅ ଯେ ଇନ୍ କେସ୍ ଯେ ତମେ ମାନେ ଡିସାଟିସ୍ଫାଇଡ୍ ଅଛ ନିଜ କାମରେ। ଦ ପ୍ରାଇମ୍ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର ଡିସାଇଡ୍ସ ଦ ସବଜେକ୍ଟସ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଡିସ୍କସନ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଦି ମିଟିଂ ଅଫ୍ ଦି କାଉନସିଲ୍ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର୍ସ। ସେ ସବୁ ସବଜେକ୍ଟ କ'ଣ ଡିସାଇଡ଼୍ କରନ୍ତି ଯେ ଏବେ କେଉଁ ସବଜେକ୍ଟ ଉପରେ ଡିସ୍କସନ୍ କରିବା। Leader of the Parliament. The Prime Minister is the leader of the majority party of Lok Sabha and hence the leader of the Parliament as well. He, the President, summons and prorogues the Parliament and also dissolves the Lok Sabha on advice of the Prime Minister. No bills can be passed in the Parliament without approval of the Prime Minister। माने Prime Minister को बिना approval रे कौन सी बिल मध्य कौन पास ही पारिबनी। As a leader of the majority party, he or she supports the speaker in maintaining decorum। as a leader of majority party leader हिसाब रे he or she supports the speaker of maintaining decorum in parliament ହେଲା। moreover he or she declares important policies of the government on the floor of the parliament। chief advice of the president। The prime minister is the chief advisor of the president। he or she gives advice to the president time to time in different issues। he or she कौन advise the prime president from time to time समय समय अनुसार से president को advice दियंती। he or she supplies necessary information to the president। से कौन necessary information सब कौन president को supply करती। he or she informs the president about national and international situations। he or she informs the president about decisions taken by council ministers। the president sends his or her message to the council of ministers through the prime minister। president sends message to the council minister through the prime minister। माने president कौन prime minister उनको थ्रू रु सब message को send करती मंत्री परिषद को। moreover the prime minister is the connecting link between the president and parliament। next discuss chief coordinator। the prime minister is the chief coordinator। he or she coordinates the working of different ministers। he or she can supervise the function of any ministry। it is his responsibility to secure cooperation amongst all government departments। he or she tries to remove differences if any among the ministers। now we discuss leader of the nation। the prime minister is the leader of the nation। he or she leads the nation both in times of war and peace। माने war से prime minister leader of the nation और से leader होती कौन nation both times of the war शांति रहो कि युद्ध रहो से leader of the nation। he or she represents the country in national and international gatherings। से national international कौन सब जो गैदरिंग्स होची से कौन रिप्रेजेंटिंग अटंती। he or she is the chief spokesman of the nation। the prime minister is also chief spokesman of the government of India। he is chief spokesman of nation and also government of India। director of foreign affairs। as a real head of the state the prime minister plays an important role in determining Indian foreign policy and relation with other countries। as a real head of the state the prime minister plays an important role in determining Indian foreign policy and relations with other countries। he or she is the chief spokesman of India in international politics. He or she represents our country in all important national conferences. ଯେକି ସବୁ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ୍ କନଫରେନ୍ସ ହେଉଛି ସେ ଆମ କ'ଣ ଆମ ଦେଶର ରିପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟିଂ ହିସାବରେ କାମ କରନ୍ତି. ହି ଅର୍ ସି ଅଲସୋ ପ୍ଲେସ୍ ଏ କି ରୋଲ୍ ଇନ୍ ଦ ୱାର୍ଲଡ ପଲିଟିକ୍ସ ଫର୍ ଏଷ୍ଟାବ୍ଲିଶିଂ ୱାର୍ଲଡ ପିସ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ସିକ୍ୟୁରିଟି. Now we discuss role of the Prime Minister during emergency. Emergency time रे Prime Minister role कौन? According to the Constitution of India, the President declares emergency on advice of the cabinet, but माने इंडियन कन्स्टिट्यूशन हिसाब से कौन प्रेसिडेंट जे मंत्री परिषद को एडवाइस अनुसार एमरजेंसी गुडी को डिक्लेयर करती किंतु बट इन रियलिटी द प्रेसिडेंट डिक्लेयर्स एमरजेंसी ऑन एडवाइस ऑफ द प्राइम मिनिस्टर माने किंतु प्रकृत में प्रेसिडेंट प्राइम मिनिस्टर को एडवाइस अनुसार ही से सब एमरजेंसी को कौन डिक्लेयर करती. ड्यूरिंग एन एमरजेंसी अंडर आर्टिकल 352 द प्राइम मिनिस्टर बिकम्स वेरी पावरफुल. माने आर्टिकल 352 जो एमरजेंसी लागू होची सेते बेले प्राइम मिनिस्टर बिकम्स वेरी पावरफुल. Now we discuss miscellaneous powers. The Prime Minister of India has miscellaneous powers also. The Prime Minister of India enjoys vast power of the patronage. All important appointments at the national level are made by the Prime Minister. He or she takes part in popular activities. He or she is all in the country.